Welcome to another episode of Transform Perspective with Kyra Weathersby. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I think we're on episode 16, to be honest. Not of Transform Perspective, because before I was doing it a totally different way, but of being on Spotify and doing your traditional podcast setup and everything like that. So it's been 16 episodes. Check out the other episodes if you haven't already. And then also Spotify. It's on Spotify. So if you don't have time to watch the video, which I think you can watch it on Spotify as well, in general. But I only post audios there. So definitely check it out. Transform Perspective on Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow me on TikTok. I have some shorts and some other things on there that I do that's different. Just want to plug that in before we get into today's topic. I feel we all have, this is what it is. We all have different meanings to different words. And for example, a phrase follow your heart, when you're hearing phrases like that, that's not the only one. There's so many different ones. But when you hear a phrase like that, it's everybody has different experiences. So they put different meanings to different things. More specifically, words such as love. Everybody has different viewpoints of love, but that is one of the most used words ever. Love, God, happiness, success. We have all these words that we use daily, all the time, and throughout our life, but everybody has a different meaning. Your meaning of what these words are, certain words, may be the same as someone else. And so that's where you may bond or have a relationship or just be cool with these people. It could be your friends, your family, co-workers, whomever. You may connect with them because they hold the same meaning of certain words like you do. You may not think about it in that way, but a lot of times we do connect with people because we have things alike. That's not always the case. Because you could be totally different from someone and still connect with them. But when we're talking about words and stuff, usually people will have the same meaning of words or taught the same meaning, or they have totally different meanings. When you're using the word love, somebody's perspective of love could be, in your opinion, in your view, very toxic. Or very unhealthy or very weird, But that's what they know is love. Maybe that's how they grew up. Maybe that's what they've experienced to be love. And that's kind of what they've always seen it as, based off of TV or based off of the external world. And then their experience as they grew up, that's how they have kind of put two and two together. They saw that and they're okay, that's love. And so when you start to go into society and mingle with people and get to meet other human beings, you start to notice that everybody has a different definition for certain words, especially those common ones. Like I said, love, God, when you're looking at happiness or wealthiness, success, it's what is your definition of that? Because sometimes we use these words with the idea that the people around us, or as a collective, we all view it the same, or we all have the same meaning, but we don't. And so a lot of times we're miscommunicating, or it's things aren't clicking because you just have a different meaning or definition for that. And that's not to say it's a good or bad thing. It's just, it is. And it's something that I've recognized. Not everybody's going to have the same definition of love that you do. A lot of the times when we're looking at the word love can mean many different things. There's many different types of love. There's the loves that a parent has for their child. There's love for your friend, a friendship love. There's romantic love. There's the love you have for your coworkers and the people that you work with. There's love you have for nature and animals. There's love you have for God and a higher power and just you connecting spiritually. There's love for yourself. So there's, I feel a lot of these words cannot be defined, but as humans, we love to try to make sense of everything. And so we try to make our brains make connections and say, okay, that's what that is. But a lot of the times if there's an overused word, the examples that I've used, I feel none of those things actually have definitions that our mind can comprehend. that's just like my personal perspective, is that I'm seeing like you can't really define love, you know? You can't really define what that looks like. It's an experience, you know, and it's special and unique for you. And that may vary for different people and different circumstances and different phases of your life, what that looks like. Your love for your friend is going to be different from the love that you have for your parent. Now, that doesn't mean that it's any greater than or less than. It could be, but, you know, it's love, but maybe in a different way. So, yeah, it can be very complex and kind of weird, but like I feel like you cannot define it. Same thing for like happiness, you know. What you define as happiness may be somebody else's. Somebody else may totally see it different. Your happiness could be, I got $1 million and I live on the beach, or I live on the island. Their happiness could be that they're like the smartest person in the world, or they gain a lot of knowledge, or they're able to just have peace, you know. Some people's happiness may have nothing to do with material wealth or a lot of friends, or, you know, their happiness may be just peace or being to themselves, or not carrying any pain or trauma. Somebody else's happiness could be being around family all the time, or being out in nature, or, you know, everybody has their own idea of what that looks like and what that means. And so when we are interacting with one another, like I said, it can definitely be a lot of miscommunication and things get lost in translation, because it's like, what? You realize, okay, everybody does not have the same meaning and definition. And that seems like, well, duh, you know, that's why there's a lot of conflict, and that's why a lot of people are separate from one another, because they have different views and outlooks on life. Yes, that is totally true. But I guess when you're looking at words, overused words, or words, you know, sometimes it's not so clear, you know, especially when you may just assume that person sees things the way that you do. It's like, nope, everybody sees it differently. Yeah, happiness is one, success is one, God is even one. Everybody has a different meaning and definition for God. And I think with all words, you can use the words. Words are there to help us kind of express ourselves and connect with one another. But it can also be very confusing and a lot of miscommunication. And I feel like words don't really describe what it really is. We can try to use it, like I said, but it just doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't do it justice. It's just all about a knowing and all about actually experiencing it. Because you can say God, God, God all day long. Love, love, love. But it's like, what is that? How do you describe that? It's undescribable. It's, you know, it's out of this world in a way. Like, it's beyond a thought process. I feel like if you're thinking about it, you can believe it if you're thinking about it. But if you know it, if you experienced it, you don't, you know, it goes beyond the mind. It goes beyond a thought. It's not just a belief. It's a knowing. It's an experience, you know. If you experience love, if, you know, you love your sibling or your parent or your friend, like, how do you describe that? You know, you can only do so much with words. A lot of times it just goes beyond words. It goes beyond words. And so that's just, it's really interesting to, you know, look at that. Look at how much we say and how often we use words, when a lot of stuff, you don't even need to use words. You know, it's just a knowing. And if you know it, and if there's other people involved and they know it, you know, it's like, you know you love someone before you actually say it. Like, a lot of times you don't even have to tell people you love them. Of course, the society we live in and stuff, there's nothing wrong with saying I love you and showing that care and affection, but that's like, it's there. You just love that person. And so we just use words to express it, but it's not necessary, if that makes sense. Of course, people may get offended or feel like that's kind of where you're stepping into ego and everything like that. Telling someone you love them is great. I'm just saying that love is there before you can even express it. That happiness is there before you can even express it. That, and it's not even just like positive, happy things or anything like that. It's just anything. I feel like expressing yourself is great. Using words is great. But I feel like things just are what they are. And it's pretty cool that we're able to have languages and use words in order to, like, share that and project that and just like really get it out there and communicate with one another. It's something so simple that it's like so deep and so cool. But yeah, the people you're around, whether you're close to them or not, they're probably 9 times out of 10 going to have a totally different definition of what these words mean. And that's totally okay. But I think it's really cool, or would be really cool, if we ask them, what does this mean to you? You know, what does love mean to you? What does success look like to you? Or even just asking ourselves. I feel like you can learn so much about yourself and learn so much about other people in the world by asking those simple questions. There was a video that I saw where someone was saying, like, ask your friend, like, why am I your friend? A lot of the times that's hard to answer because it goes beyond words. Of course, if you have an answer, that's great and that's fine. You know, you may say, because I love you. What does love mean? So you can always dig deeper and ask what it means. And if you don't have an answer for it, that's fine. It doesn't necessarily need an answer. And I think a lot of times we think everything has to have an answer or some type of meaning to it, but it already does without you knowing how to express and articulate it. I think expressing yourself and articulating it to the best of your ability is wonderful. And I think people should definitely do that. I'm just saying, with being able to do that, it's also just, it just exists and it just is. But, you know, ask your friend, why are we friends? And see what they say. Or, you know, ask them what they think something means. And I think it's a great way to bond with another person and just bond with yourself and get to know people. Because a lot of times we have assumptions, or we don't ask these type of questions and we're just like, or I don't care, you know, what they think about it. But I think you can learn so much about the world and yourself when you really just ask those simple questions. And when you look at these words that we use in our everyday vocabulary, and it's like, what does that mean? And I think I spoke on this before, but I use the example of like when you're a kid and stuff and you ask questions. I was definitely a kid who asked so many questions. It's like you get an answer, but it's like, do you really know what that means? 9 times out of 10, you don't know what it means. You just say, oh, okay, they told me that's what that means. And so I'm just going to go with that. And so you just repeat it in your head and you believe it and you say, okay, that is what that means. But if you have yet to experience it, then you really have no clue what it is. Like you don't know it. You believe it in your mind. You told yourself, okay, that's what that is. And you believe it, but do you know it? So, and that's something I'll probably get into for another video, is believing versus knowing, because that's something that I'm learning as well. But I feel like as kids and even as adults, as we're learning and navigating life, our perspectives change, and perspective is truly important as well as experience. And your experiences change your perspective, or maybe not, but you know, it happens as we grow and as we learn. That's basically all I wanted to get into today. It's just really looking at what words are we using and what do they actually mean to us, and do we use them to connect with other people? Do we really know other people as deep as we think we do? Do we know ourselves as deep as we, think we do? And if you don't, that's okay, because it's a learning experience. But it's just interesting to see how we use these common words. It's, worldwide, but a lot of times we have different definitions and meanings behind them. And that makes all the difference. How you see that word, what that means to you, what is your experience with the words that you're saying. Because our words are truly powerful. So it does mean something, and it does matter whether you see it or not. So yeah. But as you grow up, I think you start to have more experiences and you see things in your own way. And I think that's definitely, I know that is part of the beauty of life and growing and just experiencing on your own. You step beyond just believing or just saying words and you don't even have a connection to it, You're saying love, 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 love. Not a Mac Miller reference, but you're using that word, but you've never experienced that. Or maybe you have. Of course, I feel like everybody experiences love. I feel like love is more than just like an emotion or something. I feel like at our root, it's who we are. But I'll get into that at another time. But I feel like it's so much There's so much depth to these words, and sometimes we don't realize that because we're still experiencing life. So yeah. And as kids, you just ask, oh, what is that? And they say, oh, it's this. And you're like, okay, that's that, you know? You ask like, for example, what is this? And you're like, oh, this is a remote. Okay, this is a remote. But then you have to learn as you get older that, okay, this is how you work the TV. This is how you change the channels. Like, it's connected to the TV, and this is how you utilize the TV and are able to make changes and choose what you want to watch and when you want to watch it. But when you first learn, you're just like, oh, this is a remote. Yeah, that's a remote. But you don't know its function. You don't know, what I'm saying, the details of it until you actually experience it. And so, yeah. A lot of times when I'm sharing these things, I'm like, does that even make sense? But that's just my perspective. And my perspective is constantly changing and transforming in many different ways, especially when it comes to things like this. But I think it's cool to just share and ponder on sometimes, because it matters. At least to me it is. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments about this. Is there any other words that you use on a day-to-day basis or that you hear that maybe you have a different perspective on, or maybe you didn't really look into before, or like, what is your take on this topic? Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, either YouTube, Spotify, even TikTok. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow on Spotify and TikTok as well, and share with your loved ones, with your friends, with people who you think would be interested in these topics and transform perspective as a podcast. Don't forget, I have plenty of other content, and yeah, like as well. And I hope you have an amazing day. And yeah, I was gonna say watch what you say, but that just rhymed, but it didn't make sense. Anyways, remember, it is not about perfection, but committing to expansion. Have a transformed perspective.